Hey Scrappers, it's Vanessa, and I thought before I started this process video I would just jump on real time for a second just to remind you of what the mood board that I'm using for this month is. So if you saw my previous video, you saw my kit that I pulled that I based off of this mood board. And so obviously a lot of what I took was from color. So that will obviously be a big part of this layout. But as well, I wanted to just point out things like the sparkle and these circle elements and some of this stitching sort of texture detail. I just wanted to point those out. These are sort of where my thoughts were going for what I was going to use on this layout. So I'm going to jump over to the real-time version. I did want to give you a heads up that for this video, it does have mixed media, and I filmed how I did the process for my mixed media, and then I do jump to creating the layout. However, instead of actually sticking it all down, I laid it all out how I wanted the layout to look in its final state, and then I basically cut the video at that point, and then I figure I'll come back at the end and just give you a bit of detail on, how everything came together at the end. I say that because if you notice, I have a bandage on my finger. I actually cut my finger, and so for the next little while, unfortunately, you are going to see a bandage on my hand. It's going to take quite a while for it to heal, but today it doesn't look all that great, so I am sort of wanting to get a video out, but I also didn't want my hand on display the whole day. So right now you're seeing one hand. So I will come back at the end of the video and just give you a quick look at the layout. There'll be pictures at the end as well, but I will skip over now to the process. And so I will talk to y'all later. Hey guys, so the first thing that I'm doing here is just showing you what I pulled to use on this layout. And I will tell you I pull a lot more than what I end up using on the page. There is going to be some mixed media, so I'm just showing you here the colors that I'm going to use. If you can't quite catch them as I'm showing them, I will try to remember to tell you which colors as I am using them. These are all the embellishments, and like I said, a lot of them do not get used, but I always figure I'd rather have more choice than not enough. So bits and pieces do. I'm happy to get any of it used. And if you saw my previous kit, you will have seen that I did show you everything that I put together in my stash kit. And so that's where all of this has come from if you haven't watched that video. The first thing I'm doing here is I cut these circles on my silhouette. There are 5-inch, 3-inch, and 2-inch, and basically I am going to use these as elements on my page, and so I wanted to give them some added detail, so I went ahead and took my piercing tool and punched holes all the way around each of the circles, and then I'm just taking my embroidery floss and I just ended up stitching around all of those. Moving on now to the mixed media. I have sped this up so that the video wasn't too long. I am going to use the packaging technique for all of my mixed media on this one, and this first color was deep blue sea if you weren't able to catch it. And I'm basically using just cardstock. This is the marshmallow or basil marshmallow cardstock, so it doesn't actually need gesso. I probably would gesso it in the end. It did warp a little bit more than I'd like. But for the most part, this works great. I just laid the color down. I'm just taking each color, spraying it on my little piece of packaging and putting it on the layout. I think that second color was, well, Blew Me Down, or Oh Say Can You See. I use both of them, so if it's not one, it's the other. And these 3 colors that I've used so far are all from Shimmers. I love those. I thank Missy Whitten for making me spend all my money on Shimmer's products. I then pulled this textures from Shimmers in Patina, I think it was called, and I'm just putting down this on the page just solely to add some texture. Obviously I don't have a stencil that I'm using there. In the end, this actually does not even, you can't even see it. It all gets covered up, but you know, I had thought that I was going to want that extra texture, and that's really the whole reason why I'm doing any of this background, is just to add that extra texture to the background for my layout to rest on. So most of it, as with, you know, mixed media that you do on your backgrounds, a lot of it times it does not end up, or the majority of it does not end up showing up. This one has a bit more open space, so this final layout, so you do see some, but again, none of that texture paste is seen in the end. I have to say, of the texture paste, I think Dazzlers are my favorite. The textures are, I like them, but it's a little too textured for me sometimes. Now this 8.5 by 11 sheet of white cardstock, I really like how this turned out. Unfortunately, this piece does not actually make it onto the layout, but I actually use this, what becomes of this mixed media, I actually back a circle with it, and I like it, and I kept it to use hopefully on another layout. It does not actually make it to the final layout. It just didn't work with how I ended up laying everything out, but I really like this idea, and I like what the end result was, so it's really pretty. I love that champagne paste. It's very shimmery and shiny, and it's like a ivory cream color. It's beautiful. So I'm just doing some splatters on this one, and again, like I said, you're not actually going to ever see this come back again, so I just wanted to leave it in to say that, you know, I had intentions of using it. So I'm going to bring back that champagne. It would be more like a Dazzler's texture. It's very smooth and silky. No texture other than, you know, what you add with your spatula. And this, I'm just literally putting the paste on this white piece of cardstock. I really want to give it texture, so I'm spreading it on with my tool and just getting it really textured. I put a lot on, so this takes forever to dry, but basically I'm going to use that to back one of my circles, and I really love the texture and the shine that that gives. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just backing that circle, which you can see I've already finished all of the stitching around the edge. So I'm just going to show you, this is what I end up doing with all of those circles. They all end up getting backed by a pattern paper of some sort. And so there you see, I now have my circles. They are all backed. And I decided that this layout needed to have some inking around the edges of the things that were going to go on it. It just was feeling very white, or just like things were floating too much if I didn't have that ink to kind of tie it all together. So I ended up pulling the Chip Sapphire Distress ink, and I'm just using that now on all of the pieces in this layout. So those are all my circles. I've already put down my background paper on that blue piece of cardstock. I actually gutted the middle of that, so it's just really around the edges that I have that dark blue. Here I'm taking the Heidi Swap ephemera pieces. I just picked the stars, and they're the ones that you can color any color you want, and I'm using that Chip Sapphire again to just color those to the blue that I wanted to add into this layout. And so here you see I am just laying out everything, how it's going to look. So my circles are going to look like it. Basically, they stay in that sort of setup. I'm going to first, before doing anything else, mat my photo. I'm cutting it down a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and mat it on the back side of the pattern paper that two of those circles are backed in. And then a scrap piece of this turquoise dot, I think it was a Doodlebug paper, will also be another mat on that photo. And this photo is just one of my son, one day as he was sitting on the couch with his, I think he has his Kindle in this one, and he's just watching a video, and that's basically what this layout is going to be about. It's just going to be talking about how whenever he gets to have electronics, 9 times out of 10, the first thing that he will do is put on a YouTube video. He is a little obsessed with watching some of these gamer YouTubers. Like, if any of you have kids, you might have kids that do the same thing, and they watch Dan TDM and Think Noodles, I think, are his 2 favorites. So that's basically where I catch him most of the time, is watching some sort of video, and then he goes and plays the game. So it was just a little cute moment that I wanted to document, that this is where he is right now, that this is a big part of, you know, when he's just getting some time to himself, this is what he does. So I've gone ahead here and matted that picture up, just inking up my edges, and my photo is going to go right there at the top. So I'm going to play with the circles a little bit, and like I said previously, I am not going to glue everything down. I'm just simply going to lay everything out here as it's going to look in the final product. And that's simply because I don't want you guys to have to watch me glue everything down, not to mention I don't want you to have to see the bandage on my hand for too long of a time. So unfortunately for this one, it's going to be, I'm going to lay it all out, and then I'm going to glue it all down, and I'm going to come back and just give you a quick overview. So here I'm just adding in some star wood veneers, some sequins. I have 3 little clusters, one that has a smile and a camera, another that has a diamond and just a ticket, and then another one that has a frame. And I'm just showing you lastly where my journaling is. Guys, is the finished project. And like I said, this basically is exactly how I laid it out. I have added my journaling strips, which I kind of showed in the video where I was thinking it was going to go. Everything for this layout, if you can kind of see it, I'll kind of hold it up a little bit. All of it is popped up. So the paper was warped from the mixed media, so it is a little wonky, but I had planned to, you know, stick all the circles on Fun Foam to give them some lift anyway. And so I just went ahead and I just stuck everything down. This circle here, if you remember from the mixed media, was the texture paste that I used. And so I really like the texture on that one. And then you just see the circles with the stitching details, the sparkle with the sequins. So guys, this is the completed layout. And if you are new to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see what other layouts I create with my stash kit. And if you haven't watched that video, make sure you go back and watch so you can see everything that I pulled and the mood board. And guys, I will talk to you the next time. Up next are just some pictures of the layout in more detail, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.